Welcome indeed to another episode of Behind the Boss. I'm Nick from nextstepnick.com.
I'm Lord Ash, and as you can see Leon Kennedy doing, grab a seat and listen in.
Exactly. We're going to go through Resident Evil 4 today, which is actually one of my favourite games, I have to admit.
One of mine too. I played it on the PS2, not on the original release on the GameCube. Didn't have one of those growing up.
Yeah, I was the same. I think the thing I love about this game, to be honest, is I was always a bit of a coward when it comes to like horror games. I played Resident Evil 3, a little bit of a coward, Nemesis frightened me, I'm not going to lie, I was quite young. But this changed that, it made it cool, you're an action hero.
This was one of the games where it didn't take itself too seriously. Granted, Resident Evil 1, there were a lot of dodgy readings and a lot of dodgy lines in the actual voice acting, but as you can see from here, it's the first one that has a laser grid.
We're dodging lasers. I love it. I love it.
It makes you feel like a badass.
Yeah, I love the fact that it indulges that kitschness. I mean, here, for example, I'm releasing a barrel to roll down and crush some bad guys. I shoot the guy.
And in the background, there's the barrel taking
I
the
love
guy
it
out.
because it takes that kitschness and that cheesiness and it turns it into something fun, but it also helps to make organic gameplay. Like here, we've got laser puzzles, we've got mirror puzzles, which I know are like, old hat now, but they were so cutting edge and different then.
Especially, back in the day in 2005 when this was first released, like we can see here, a claw game with enemies.
I love it. I love the fact that it just takes these things in like this horror action trope and turns it into comedy at the same time. It's light, then it's heavy, then it's dark, it's mysterious. It's like this. You've got a drawbridge, and you've also got a massive statue of a tiny midget man dressed like Napoleon. I mean, how can you go wrong with that? It's so good.
Exactly, and this statue is actually designed after one of the main characters in the game, Roman Salazar, who does appear as a boss.
I think he's one of my favourites. I mean, this is all on the lead up towards him. So one of the reasons why we're going through this in Behind the Boss is because I don't think you can separate stuff like the lead up from a boss. I think it enhances the boss when you've got this interesting, fun lead up. Like now, you're going to fight this guy, and currently you're running away from a massive statue of a tiny Napoleon man.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, it's fun, and it does something else different in that we were talking about this before, it takes what now is considered quite old hat, quite phoned
quick time
in.
events.
Yeah, but back then this was new, this was fun, this was novel, and this was exciting, and I love it.
Exactly, and also you just saw, as Leon shot the lock off then, one of the big innovations with this game was the fact it was a third-person, over-the-shoulder shooter, and you had 100% control over the gun.
Yeah, you can do things like this, for example, where before you could only literally aim up, down, and middle. You can actually go all around. I mean, like that also introduced this system here, where you can upgrade weapons, you can change things, you can buy stuff from this mysterious merchant, who is also really cheesy.
Yes,
I love
yes.
him. I love him.
But as you say, with the upgrade system, you can make your gameplay wholly unique. Like in this one, you've just used the TMP, which is like the little mini machine gun. I never used that during my playthrough.
Yeah.
Only just used the shotgun, the Red 9, which is the handgun, and the Magnum.
Yeah, you can mix up your playstyle. It's like here, for example, one of the major things, and this is going to sound very, very OCD, but you can customise your inventory and move things around to make space.
And inventory was one of the things in Resident Evil that was always a bore, where you had to put stuff in chests, backtrack, backtrack. Here, big open inventory space that you can actually keep buying new inventory slots for. I think it's called a attaché case.
Yeah,
in this one.
well, yeah, you've got that system. You've got all these other things. They've even added the treasure system in, which is part of that. So to make money to buy them, you can get, for example, treasures. You examine those treasures. You realise some go together. You put them together. You then sell them for more money. It's like this really interesting, fun thing where you're exploring, you're creating, you're finding things, you're upgrading things, you're changing things up, and you're mixing things up for your own playstyle. It's just so fun. I mean, here we are, for example, there's a shooting gallery.
In the middle of the mission, why not? Why not have a shooting gallery?
You probably can't hear it now, but if I actually hit the castle in the background, there's a little which is a witch noise.
Yep, another little thing, you can win bottle caps. Earn high enough rewards through that mini-game shooting gallery, you earn bottle caps that do either the enemy noises or a little bit. Another little innovation, obviously, is the graphics update.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where it really turns Leon into a rookie cop, into a bit of a James Bond, especially with his little quips like this.
Yeah, I don't know why he says this.
Women.
I don't understand this, but the thing I think that it does so well is this is why we've got on this whole lead up, is because it introduces characters, mechanics, and the world with so much vigour, with so much there's so many interesting things it does. Like here, we're being introduced to one of the main bad guys, and he says,
"Arrive in my cage of torment, my friend."
what does that even mean?
That's a really, really cheesy dialogue.
Yeah, and they all are, but I love it.
Now,
It's like here, we're actually meeting, Sadler for the main time. We're meeting him. He's this real bad guy. He just really cheesy one-liners. This is one of my favourite meetings. This is the guy you saw the statue of earlier.
Yes.
And one of the things I love about this is he always meets you with this Mr. Kennedy and then goes straight into exposition.
Like a James Bond villain.
Yeah, he starts monologuing. And the thing is that Leon is such a stick in the mud that his stoic straight man kind ofness is so juxtaposed by what they're doing. Like this, for example, just the little giggle. It makes me laugh every time I play it. When I had to capture the footage for this, I love it so much.
And this bit?
Yeah.
Cheesy voice acting, but it makes
great.
Makes sense.
It's such a good performance. I think that's the thing that I love about this in regard to the bosses, is that it introduces the bad guys with such a flair, with so much panache. Now, don't get me wrong, some of the boss fights aren't that great. I mean, here you're going to see us fighting against... there's going to be a little bit of an introduction for this boss, and then you're going to see us actually fighting against him, and the fight itself is not great, but he is so good.
Yeah, this is Salazar, the little man you've just seen, and as you said, the Resident Evil series isn't really greatly known for their bosses.
No.
This is actually one of the only bosses in this game that is fixed. It doesn't move. His whole plan is literally to become a plant stuck in a wall.
Yeah, I don't know what he would have done if he'd beaten me, to be honest, because he can't move anymore. And the thing I love about this is that the reason that I can forgive this boss, now don't get me wrong, mechanically, this boss isn't great.
No.
It's not a great load of fun, but I think the payoff is in, this is kind of a lesson for other developers, in that if you establish a character with a lot of strength, if you establish a character so that your audience loves that bad guy.
A memorable character, you don't sort of forgive that it's a weak boss mechanic. But it's one that we don't mind playing again.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones.
I was happy to do this again, even though I know that the payoff isn't that great, because I love the fact that when you're doing this whole thing, he's this cheesy, aggressive, There's a really famous line in this where you're talking to him and you call him an old man, and he turns to you and goes, "I am only 35," or something like that, and it's so good. Excuse me for the accent there, but it has to be done. It's so hard not to want to beat him.
This boss fight, unfortunately, does fall into the Resident Evil trope, which is shoot the weak point. The weakness is exposed. Shoot the weakness, which is, unfortunately, again for him, he's the giant weakness in this boss fight. I think as you can see with yourself here, you just unload him with the Magnum.
Yeah. The eye comes back out of my way, please, and then I just go straight back to town. I think the problem is that the game itself is so good, like you say, that we can forgive stuff like this, but
that's
as a boss
the boss
fight,
done.
Yeah, that's
all
it.
that build up, and that's the boss done.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating that it's done that quickly, but the fact is, again, he's such a good character throughout the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see me do this in an even easier way now. I fail my first few shots because of course I do. But the thing that makes me laugh about this is that I think that the boss we're fighting now, he should kind of be the overarching boss of the whole game. I mean, you've already met Sadler, who is the main boss of the game. But to be honest, I thought Salazar was so much more memorable. He's so amazing, and it's just one of those things where it's a shame that the boss fight comes down to this. But
and this again is another Resident Evil trope. Rocket launches to the face, and the boss is dead.
Yeah, it's pretty much immediate, and it's a great way to save ammo, to be honest. But the reason you can forgive this is because the world is built so nicely, and you've always got experiences like this here, where there's exciting, fun, fast-paced stuff. So rather than in another game where you'd say, okay, I've got generic gameplay, boss. In this, it's, okay, you're on a minecart now. Okay, 2 seconds later, you're jumping across bridges that are falling down. Okay, 2 minutes later, you're running across the top of a skylight as the floor falls out from underneath you.
You've got to duck, otherwise you get hit by the beams.
Yeah.
You look back, you can see other enemies diving into the minecarts against you.
There's so many bits of this game that feel like boss fights. That's kind of the reason why I wanted to highlight that gameplay beforehand, before we even got to the first boss, because technically speaking, I feel like this whole game just does things right. The boss fights aren't just a highlight. There's so much gameplay that kind of becomes kind of memorable phases on its own right. I mean, what you describe a boss fight as, or I would, is a memorable cutscene / fight that you play through. And this is basically the entire game with Resident Evil 4.
Exactly.
I mean, like here, this bit of gameplay here, just to interrupt you, sorry, it's so generic and just fun, but it so organically creates fun moments. Like here, I didn't know these guys were outside here, and immediately they start mobbing me. It's this fun, exciting atmosphere. It feels like what other games try to do with boss fights.
Now, we're going to introduce bit of a mixed opinion. Some people don't like this character and this boss fight. It's one of my favourite in the game.
Yeah.
This game, when it came out, QuickTime events, QTEs, weren't that relevant in gaming, and this one made you pay attention to the cutscenes.
Yeah.
And here we go. If you miss, he would kill you straight away there.
Yeah.
It's insta death, so it makes you feel more organic in the scene.
Yeah, and I think the thing about this guy here, Krauser, is that the whole way through your interactions with him, it still adds to that feeling of, okay, you're this really cool action hero. When you're doing these QuickTime events, it doesn't feel like other games where you think, okay, just tap X because reasons. You're dodging that blade, you're jumping around, you're doing that finishing move, and you're straight back into combat.
Yeah.
It keeps you on your toes, it's fun, it's exciting, it tells story. Like when you're dueling with him before when you're doing those QuickTime events, it keeps you on your toes, and you have to keep sort of organically thinking about the plot as you're doing that.
Because the button changes actually, or the button prompts actually change.
They do, yeah.
So you think, oh, it's going to be square and circle, and it'll change again. And
yeah.
That's when it'll catch you out. So you really do have to pay attention during these boss fights and during his this scene. Now, for me, after rewatching it again, do you know what this reminds me of, everyone out there? Captain America Winter Soldier. Cap versus Winter Soldier. The organic knife play, the constant sort of back and forth with CQC.
Yeah, and I think the thing about this is the whole game reminds me of a film like that. I mean, like here, you carry on fighting with him, he'll jump you from behind, he'll come up at you, you've got all these cool sequences on the lead up to these boss fights, and then when you do have these fights, they're like exciting. Like here, he's employing drones as well. So there's this whole mechanic of, okay, get out of the way, you've got to shoot these, you've got to respond to his quips with your quips. It's just so fun. I loved capturing this footage again. I loved going back to this.
Yeah, and the reason this fight is probably a bit unpopular today is because fights like this are a bit more commonplace.
Yeah.
Back then, it was brilliant. This is essentially a two-stage fight. You fight him in the ruins. This is his phase 2. This is where he gets a bit more into the original Resident Evil. Man with a giant tentacle arm attacking you. But even then, it mixes up his attack patterns.
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well, is all of these bosses, because they've been established, regardless of how the quality of the fight is, I mean, this one I think is quite fun, you know, standing on the hands and the maniacal laughter, but regardless of how the boss fight goes, you're invested in the boss through these really cool interactions.
Yeah.
They're shown to you to be, okay, I'm this bad guy, or okay, they're this kitsch bad guy who's taking advantage and really going to try and destroy you, and it's really awesome. So the whole world feels like a boss stage.
And this fight especially highlights one of the things in Resident Evil that was a complaint. In the original games, the knife was one of those, if you can go through the game with a knife, because the knife was the worst weapon, you're really good. In this game, it makes the knife useful. You use the knife all the way through the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's like here, like we were saying though, it's like Krauser just dies in sort of an uneventful way, but at the same time, the cool thing is that this game has add-ons and fun bits, so it's got stuff like extra additional campaigns and bits and pieces.
So many little add-ons and extras.
And in honesty, I won't put those clips here. Reason being is because honestly, if you haven't played this already, go out and play it. If you've played it already, go back and play it again, because I promise you won't be disappointed. It's fun from start to finish, and to be honest, I'm going to put the argument forward. That's why I showed these. I think this whole game is a boss fight. I think this whole game is just the best experience. It is a boss fight.
If you want to feel like that 80s, 90s action hero, this is the game for you.
100%. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this Behind the Boss. I know we're not traditional here today. We haven't got a bad and a good boss, but don't worry, that's coming back again next week.
Exactly, and for next week, what are we covering? Well, what is a man?
Just a miserable little pile of secrets, I think. Yeah,
exactly. So this is Lord Ash.
Yep, and Nick from www.nextstepnick.com saying goodbye, and we shall see you again next week. Thank you.
See you next week.
Come back anytime.